7 years. Think about how much can change in that time. It's the amount of time that it took the Romans to build the Colosseum. It's almost how long J.K. Rowling took to write the first Harry Potter book. And the latest Studio Ghibli movie, The Boy and the Heron, was in production for 7 years. In many ways, 7 years can define a journey, especially in baseball. Journeymen can spend their entire careers in the minor leagues, doing whatever it takes to get that one shot at the majors. First-round picks have around a 66% chance of making it to the majors. In the second round, that number drops to 49%. In the third, 32%. And by the time you reach the 8th round, players have less than a 20% chance of making it to the majors. You read the title. This video is supposed to start in 2010, but trust me, this is some important context. With that said, let's take it back to 2001. At this time, the Mariners would boast their all-time best season with 116 wins, led by Brett Boone and Ichiro Suzuki. Barry Bonds would go on to have his all-time great 73 home run season. Yet amidst all of these incredible moments, something rather insignificant, no, beyond insignificant will happen that changes the outcome of one team's season 7 years later. In the 2001 draft, with the 236th overall pick in the 8th round, the Houston Astros selected Brooks Conrad. He was seen as an exceptionally insignificant pick, being taken in the 8th round, but he battled, bouncing from team to team before eventually landing in the A's system, where he would see his first major league start. Despite defying the 80% chance that he wouldn't make it to the majors at all, Conrad unfortunately only saw 6 appearances that season. During the 2009 offseason, he struck a deal with the Braves, but bounced up and down between the major and minor leagues, and by 2010, he had earned a consistent spot on the MLB roster. But with the Braves is also where Conrad finds his infamy. In 2010, many viewed the Atlanta Braves as serious contenders. They had a great mix of talented veterans with Chipper Jones, Tim Hudson, and Billy Wagner, but also had a great young core, led by 20-year-old All-Star Jason Hayward, 26-year-old All-Star Brian McCann, and the one who may have been the most impactful was 26-year-old All-Star Martin Prado. The Braves were playing with extra spark this year for Hall of Fame manager Bobby Cox, who was retiring after the season. They coasted through the first 100 games of the year, where they had a 4-game lead on the Phillies for the NL East, and looked like they were one of the best teams in the NL. Conrad, over this span, was typically just used as a pinch hitter, and he was pretty solid in this role, and had some special moments. Like when Conrad lived every kid's dream in one unforgettable game, stepping up to pinch hit in the bottom of the 9th with the bases loaded, down by 3 runs, and smashing a walk-off grand slam.
Fly ball, pretty well hit. Back goes Nix, at the wall, leaps, it's off, it's gone! It's a grand slam, and the Braves win it! Are you kidding me?
The atmosphere was great in Atlanta, but things quickly changed. In mid-August, Chipper Jones tore his ACL, with October right around the corner. Although he was 38, Jones was still a very impactful player, with 2.4 WAR that season and a 120 OPS+. This was a huge loss for the Braves. After this injury, the Braves struggled offensively, and in the blink of an eye, they now found themselves 6 games back to the Phillies going into the final week of the regular season. With the Phillies getting hot and the Braves struggling, their sights were now set on just making the playoffs, even if it was a wild card. However, in the final week, they had a huge blow when Martin Prado hurt his hip on a diving play opportunity. Prado attempted to play through it, but he re-injured himself when swinging, and then the Braves reported that he would be out at least until the end of the season. In 2010, Martin Prado was 9th in the NL MVP race, hitting .307 with a 119 OPS+, and was an above-average defensive second baseman, with 2 DRS. The Braves, now after losing Jones and Prado, had to completely retool their infield before the postseason. There were reports that they would call up 20-year-old top prospect Freddie Freeman and try him at third base, or put him at first base and move first baseman Troy Glaus to third. However, the Braves didn't think Freeman was ready yet, and went with their veterans. They moved utility man Omar Infante to second base. put Alex Gonzalez at shortstop, and then gave Brooks Conrad a shot at third base. Brian McCann, after the injury to Prado, stated, "With 5 games left, anytime you lose a guy like Prado, it's not good. Guys will just have to step up. Conrad can do it. He's done it before." Those words would echo around the clubhouse. After seeing the clutch Conrad is capable of bringing, fans and the team had to trust he might be able to pull through when they needed it most. But Conrad had very little experience playing infield at an MLB level, as he only had 55 appearances in the field throughout his career at this point. But that didn't shake them, as the Braves snuck into the playoffs, and Brooks Conrad's offense was a big driving factor, as he went 7 for 20 with 6 RBIs in the final week of the regular season. Unfortunately, we have to address the silver lining of his production throughout that time. Although he was great offensively, he really hurt the Braves defensively. Conrad committed an error at third base in 3 straight games, and going into the last game of the year, the Braves had to flip Infante and Conrad's positions to help minimize the damage. Yet, in the final game of the regular season, Conrad even committed an error at second base as well. The Braves had a real defensive problem with their infield. Despite this, fans still held hope that if Conrad could just hold his own at second base and limit errors to 1 or less per game, the Braves could still make a serious playoff run. And just like that, the stage was set, and the Braves were ready to go on one last playoff run for Bobby Cox in his final season. In Game 1 of the NLDS, the Braves ran into prime Tim Lincecum, who, while short-lived, had one of the greatest pitching peaks in recent history. He went on to toss 9 scoreless innings. Unfortunately for our friend Brooks Conrad, he did not hold his own in this game, committing another error.
Reaching out and a ground ball hit to Conrad. Bobbles the ball, the throw to first, not in time. And there you see the Braves defense rearing its ugly head here.
In Game 2, the Braves won 5-4 in extra innings and tied up the series. Conrad had a hit this game and was 4 for 4 on his opportunities in the field. He finally snapped a 5-game error streak and did it in style with this diving stop. This gave Braves fans confidence that his fielding mishaps were in the past, and now it was anyone's series, with it all tied up 1-1. The postseason has a way of elevating every moment, raising the stakes, turning heroes into legends, or exposing those who can't handle the pressure for their greatest weaknesses. For Conrad, Game 3 would become a defining chapter, not for his redemption, but for heartbreak that Braves fans would never forget. Andres Torres led off the game for the Giants with a base hit, and then the ball found Conrad.
And there goes Torres, and the ball bounded to second base and bobbled by Conrad. The throw to first base, not in time.
What looked like a tailor-made double play quickly turned into 2-on, no outs for the Giants. The Braves luckily escaped the first inning without allowing a run, but this was just the start of a night to forget. It seems like if you make a mistake, the ball will keep finding you. This is the sad truth of what the baseball gods can do to someone. Take them at their lowest moment and dismantle them from within. Now, in the second inning, with a runner on third, Cody Ross hit a routine pop-up into the shallow outfield. Conrad should be able to grab it, no problem.
And Brooks Conrad in right field drops the ball. And the throw to first base and diving in with the run is Fontenot.
When I hit it, I knew it was a tough play. I was out there in the first inning, and the sun was terrible. Now, maybe Jason Hayward should have called off Conrad here, but nonetheless, when it hits his glove, it's charged as an error. And now, 2 innings into the game, Conrad has 2 errors, and has cost the Braves a run. Braves starting pitcher Tim Hudson did everything he could to keep the Braves in the game, as he went 7 innings and only allowed 1 unearned run. The game was 1-0 Giants going into the bottom of the 8th inning, and then pinch hitter Eric Hinsky changed everything.
And a drive down the right field line. And this one is going to be a home run, Eric Hinsky. Just fair, and the Braves lead at 2-1.
The Braves were up 2-1 going into the top of the 9th inning, and they had a chance to end things. Craig Kimbrell got 2 quick outs, and then got the Braves 1 strike away from winning the game. Nearly 50,000 Braves fans were on their feet, ready to see them close out a pivotal playoff game. But the Giants kept fighting. Freddie Sanchez got a base hit to keep them alive. Then Aubrey Huff got a single and tied the game up at 2. Now, Buster Posey steps up to the plate with 2 outs and a tied game. All the Braves need is 1 out to escape this inning still tied. Yet in the most pivotal moment of the game, the ball was hit right to Conrad again.
And it reaches out and one through the legs of Conrad into center field. The run will score, and Brooks Conrad sees a shot go through his legs. It'll be his 3rd error of the game, and the Giants take a 3-2 lead.
The Braves, instead of escaping the inning with a tied game, now trailed 3-2. They got shut down in the bottom of the 9th, and in a flash, the game was over. In this game, Brooks Conrad went 0 for 3, had 3 errors, and of the 3 errors, 2 of them resulted in a run scoring. In what was only a 1-run game, these errors were huge and ended up being the difference between the Braves winning and losing. Conrad was benched in Game 4, and the Giants won 3-2 again to close out the series. What once felt like a promising playoff run for Atlanta ended in heartbreak. The Braves, just 1 out away from winning Game 3, saw their hopes crumble with a first-round exit. It also marked the bittersweet ending of Bobby Cox's legendary managerial career. Adding to the sting, the Giants went on to win the World Series, leaving Braves fans to wonder what could have been if Conrad did not commit those errors. Unfortunately, after that season, Conrad would only play 3 more seasons in the majors, and he was only above replacement in 1 of those 3. 2014 would mark the end of his professional career. He defied the odds of making it to the majors from being drafted in the 8th round. But unfortunately, he's remembered for what is quite possibly one of the worst nights of his life. A night that started with 1 mistake, then unraveled with the ball finding Conrad again and again. His unfair legacy shouldn't leave him remembered as a choker, but should be a reminder of the cruel and unforgiving nature of playoff baseball. Let's not forget we still have lots more to cover. That was only the first of 14 years. But before we do any of that, we need to thank today's sponsor, Factor.
Factor meals eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Simply heat and savor that good stuff.
Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. Skip the grocery store's prep work and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals shipped right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more. As a college student, I see people ordering from Factor all the time, and I don't blame them. Factor's great for people with a busy schedule. It cuts down on grocery trips and cooking, so busy people can have more time to work on schoolwork and do the things they love.
Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50AWC to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code 50AWC on factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
The 2011 MLB season was one for the ages, packed with thrilling performances and historic comebacks. But for historic comebacks to happen, there also needs to be dramatic collapses. 2011 would end up being defined by the dramatic collapses, where teams squandered late-season leads, making it truly the year of the choke. The Atlanta Braves, reeling from their heartbreaking postseason collapse in 2010, entered the 2011 season with a renewed sense of purpose. They bolstered their roster, acquiring power-hitting second baseman Dan Uggla and promoting Freddie Freeman to a full-time role at first base. Then, they welcomed returns of star players Martin Prado and Chipper Jones. These moves, combined with a bullpen widely regarded as one of the most dominant in baseball, propelled the Braves to an impressive start. By the beginning of September, Atlanta was cruising with an 80-55 record and an 8.5-game lead in the National League wildcard standings. Meanwhile, In the American League, the Boston Red Sox appeared to have a direct path to the postseason, tied with the New York Yankees atop the AL East at 82-53, and holding an 8.5-game wildcard lead over the Tampa Bay Rays. Boston seemed destined for October baseball. Featuring one of the most formidable offensive lineups in recent memory, the Red Sox led MLB in runs scored and appeared untouchable. Even if their bats cooled, the depth and talent of their roster made a collapse seem virtually impossible. Yet, the 2011 MLB season proved anything but predictable. As September unfolded, the Braves and Red Sox turned into completely different teams. The Braves were 4-5 to start off September, and then found themselves in a critical series versus the Cardinals. A series win here could really separate the Braves and solidify a playoff spot for them. In the first game of the series, the Braves led 3-1 going into the ninth, and closer Craig Kimbrell got the Cardinals down to their final out, but then Kimbrell walked back-to-back batters to load the bases for Albert Pujols. This is the last player you'd want to face with the game on the line, and Pujols made him pay. The Cardinals then went on to win the game in the bottom of the 10th with a Nick Punto walk-off sac fly. The tragic loss carried over the next 2 games of the series, as the Braves lost both and were swept by the Cardinals. The Braves' wildcard lead had now fallen to just 4.5 games. The Red Sox also at this point were in the middle of their own collapse. They lost 6 of 8 games to begin September, and then they had a huge series against the Rays. They lost Game 1 of the series 7-2, and then Evan Longoria drilled a walk-off base hit in Game 2. Then, Game 3 was even worse, as the Red Sox lost 9-1, giving the Rays the series sweep. After this sweep, the Red Sox now only held a 3.5-game lead over the Rays for the wildcard spot. We're halfway through the month at this point, and both the Red Sox and Braves were swept by the team trailing them and saw their wildcard lead cut in half. Luckily, both teams had some easy matchups coming up. The Braves next faced the Marlins, then the Mets, then the Marlins again, then the Nationals, who were 3 below 500 teams during that year. But somehow the Braves managed to lose the series against the Mets and the Nationals, and only split 3 of 6 games versus the Marlins. The Braves could have easily won more games over this span, and the instant blame was their once dominant bullpen was now blowing games. Like when Craig Kimbrell blew this game against the Marlins, allowing a walk-off bomb. Games like this will add up when you're in a playoff race, and letting ones like this slip away could be the difference. The Red Sox had a harder but definitely winnable schedule ahead, taking on the Blue Jays, Orioles, Yankees, and Rays. The Red Sox knew that the Rays and Yankees series would be battles, so they needed to capitalize on the Blue Jays and Orioles. Although, this is far from what happened, as the Red Sox first lost 2 of 3 to the Blue Jays, then 3 of 4 to the Rays. Then, they went on to lose 3 of 4 to the Orioles, and finally, they lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees. Over the 4 straight series losses, the Red Sox pitching was awful, allowing 6 runs per game. Now with just 1 series left in the regular season, the Red Sox only held a 1-game lead over the Rays, while the Braves also saw their wildcard lead dwindle to 1 game. Heading into the final 3 games of the year, the Red Sox and Braves were still favored to make the playoffs. The Braves lost their next 2 games to the Phillies, while the Cardinals won 1 of 2 versus the Astros, and now, all of a sudden, there was a tie for the NL wildcard spot going into the last game of the season. As for the Red Sox, they only needed to beat an Orioles team that won less than 70 games, and they somehow lost 1 of 2 games while the Rays beat the Yankees back-to-back nights and evened up the AL wildcard race. Now, it's game 162, the final game of the MLB season. 2 powerhouse teams that were destined to make the playoffs had fully blown 8+ game September leads, and now they're fighting for their life on the last night of the year. There were 4 games happening all at once, with major playoff implications on the line, and baseball fans were in for something special.
What a night of baseball. I think anybody that loves the game considers that night one of the greatest nights of regular season history.
As the night began, the Rays faced the Yankees, while the Red Sox played the last-place Baltimore Orioles. 3 outcomes were possible. If the Rays lost and the Red Sox won, Boston would secure the wild card. If both teams won or lost, a one-game tiebreaker would determine the spot. A Rays win combined with a Red Sox loss would allow Tampa Bay to advance directly. Also on this same day, in the NL, the Braves faced the Phillies, who already clinched the NL East and had little to play for, but still had a competitive lineup. At the same time, St. Louis played the Houston Astros, the worst team in baseball this year. 3 outcomes were possible. If the Braves won and the Cardinals lost, the Braves would secure the wild card. If both teams won or lost, a one-game tiebreaker would determine the spot. A Cardinals win combined with a Braves loss would allow the Cardinals to advance directly. Both teams were put in the exact same high-stakes situation. Pretty quickly into the slate of games, the Yankees took a commanding lead over the Rays.
High drive, deep to left, there it goes! See ya! A grand slam, Mark Teixeira. A devastating blow for the Rays as the Yankees lead 5-0.
Then, early into the Braves game, they got ahead 3-1 with this Dan Uggla homer.
0-2 pitch. Swinging a high fly ball. Deep to left center field. Back toward the wall. That ball's gone for Dan Uggla.
3 minutes later, J.J. Hardy put the Orioles ahead with a homer. Then the final game to start was the Cardinals-Astros game at 8 o'clock, and going into the bottom of the first, it was already 5-0 Cardinals. The Red Sox battled back when Dustin Pedroia homered to make it 3-2 in the 5th. Simultaneously, Mark Teixeira homered again for the Yankees, giving them a 6-0 lead over Tampa. At this point, things looked great for the Red Sox. They just needed to hold on to their lead, or for the Yankees to hold on to their lead, for the Red Sox to continue. However, the Red Sox-Orioles game hit a rain delay, and their celebrations would have to wait a little longer.
The one thing that we have eliminated tonight is the Red Sox season is not going to end tonight. The Rays aren't going to come back from 7-0.
Rain delayed the 7th, so we go in the clubhouse, and the Rays are down 7-0 to the Yankees, so we're feeling pretty good about ourselves.
While the Red Sox were in a rain delay, the Braves were in position to win and force a tiebreaker game or make the playoffs. They were up 3-2 in the bottom of the 9th and had all-star closer Craig Kimbrell enter the game to finish the job. Although Kimbrell fumbled in the big moment, he allowed a single, then back-to-back walks to load the bases with 1 out. Then Chase Utley delivered a sac fly to tie the game up at 3. The Braves-Phillies were heading into extra innings. This was not good for the Braves at this point, and the Cardinals were up 7-0, so a loss for the Braves looked like it could send them home. While this was occurring, over in the American League, the Rays were rallying to come back against the Yankees.
And there it is! Long drive! Deep to left! Gone! And now it's a one-run ball game.
2 minutes after this home run, Chris Carpenter finished a complete game shutout to give the Cardinals an 8-0 win. This now meant that if the Braves lost, the Cardinals would clinch a postseason spot. So the entire Cardinals team rushed to the clubhouse to watch the Braves game, which is now in extra innings. At 10:47, Dan Johnson of the Rays, who had 1 home run all season, came up to the plate in the bottom of the 9th, down 1 run with 2 outs, but a chance to save the Rays' season.
The 2-2 again. Johnson hits it down to right field line. That ball's going to be fair and gone.
The Rays had tied the game in a miracle comeback. As for the Red Sox, at this moment they were just taking the field coming out of the rain delay, and as long as they took care of business, their season would not be over. The Braves couldn't put hits together in their game, and the game continued into the 13th inning, where Hunter Pence hit a flare into no man's land to give the Phillies the lead. Then, in the bottom of the 13th, the Braves couldn't get it done.
To first, 1 to Rollins, throw to first, and the Philadelphia Phillies have ended the Braves season.
With the Cardinals win and the Braves loss, this meant the Braves were now officially eliminated from the postseason. The NL wildcard was set, but in the American League, anything could still happen. The Red Sox were up 3-2 in the top of the 9th, with runners on first and third, and David Ortiz up. This seemed like an easy spot for the best offense in baseball to get an insurance run. Although, this 1-foot force out by Ortiz and then a double play saved the Orioles, and they somehow escaped this jam, only down 1 run. Now, going into the bottom of the 9th, the Red Sox turned to all-star closer Jonathan Papelbon to finish the game for them. Papelbon got straight to business, striking out the first two batters. The Red Sox were 1 out away, but Chris Davis doubled to continue the game. Then Nolan Reimold spoiled the Red Sox season.
Papelbon's delivery. Reimold in the air, right center field. Nobody's going to catch it. It'll go up and over. The Orioles got it. They've tied this game up.
The very next batter, Robert Andino, put the nail in the coffin.
Andino to left field. In comes Crawford. Can't make the catch. He pops up. The throw to the plate is going to be off the mark. And the Orioles walk off with the win. The Red Sox lose in a crucial 162nd game of the year.
The Red Sox were devastated. They were 1 out away with their all-star closer on the mound against one of the worst teams in baseball, yet they somehow blew it. As the Red Sox stepped off the field, panic set in, as they were hearing the Rays and Yankees were all tied up, going into the bottom of the 12th inning. Over in Tampa Bay, their stadium was erupting. They just got the word that the Red Sox lost, so a win would mean they clinched the American League wild card. And now, up to the plate was Evan Longoria, who had a chance to do something special.
2-2 and a line shot down the left field line. That ball is gone, and the Rays win it. A line drive home run by Evan Longoria.
In 2011, we saw two teams who held an 8.5 game playoff lead in September collapse over the final month and miss the playoffs completely. Both teams in the last game of the year had the lead going into the 9th inning with their all-star closer on the mound, but couldn't get it done. These might have been two of the worst postseason collapses in the history of baseball, and they both concluded on the exact same night. Going into September, the only way the Braves could miss the postseason to the Cardinals was if they had the worst record in the NL, and the Cardinals had the best. And somehow, in some way, this is exactly what happened. Although somehow these two catastrophic collapses were not the biggest chokes of the year, and the St. Louis Cardinals, the very team that caused the Braves' downfall, were the catalyst for another all-time choke. After sneaking into the playoffs, the St. Louis Cardinals made it all the way to the World Series. While it felt like the Cardinals didn't belong, their opponent, the AL Texas Rangers, everyone expected to be here. They were the defending AL champs, with the 2010 MVP Josh Hamilton, and added even more firepower this year as they brought in Adrian Beltre and Mike Napoli, two 30-plus home run hitters inserted into an already great lineup. The World Series was a close battle throughout, as we saw them split the first 4 games. However, by Game 5, it looked like the Rangers were beginning to pull away. They won Game 5 4-2, and took a 3-2 series lead. This was when the World Series moved to St. Louis for Games 6 and 7. Normally in sports, the team with the better record gets the home field advantage in the championship. Well, not in baseball at this time. In 2011, whichever league won the All-Star game got the home field advantage in the World Series. So how did we get here? Well, back in the 2011 All-Star game, the Rangers' ace pitcher allowed this 3-run home run to Prince Fielder and was the losing pitcher in the game. Since one of the Rangers' players couldn't execute in the All-Star game, a game that's intended to be meaningless, the Rangers will have to close out the series on the road.
If Texas wins tonight, the Texas Ranger franchise will have its first ever World Series championship.
Game 6 was on its way, and the game was tied up at 4-4 going into the 7th, but the Rangers' bats changed things quickly.
Back-to-back home runs, 6-4 Texas.
There is a base hit into left center, and it's a 7-4 Texas lead.
The Rangers were up 7-4 going into the bottom of the 8th, and were just 6 outs away from winning the World Series. Although, the Cardinals kept fighting.
That ball is hit in the air to left. Back at the wall. It's a 2-run game.
A critical play was the home run that Alan Craig hit. All of a sudden, you're only down 2, and 2 seems a lot better than 3.
The Rangers were in real trouble as the game was now 7-5 and the Cardinals had the bases loaded, but Mike Adams was able to get a ground out to keep it at still a 2-run game. In the bottom of the 9th, the Rangers brought in closer Neftali Feliz to potentially close out the World Series. Feliz was an All-Star and Rookie of the Year in 2010, and in 2011 he was just as dominant, especially in the postseason. Up until this point, Feliz had only allowed 1 run and was 6-6 on save opportunities. This was exactly the player that the Rangers wanted to have the ball in this situation. Normally going into the last inning of a close game, the Rangers would also make defensive substitutions. Andy Chavez told reporters that he was supposed to be in the outfield after a pinch hit in the top of the 9th. Ideally, he would replace Nelson Cruz, who was a very poor defensive outfielder. According to reports, Rangers manager Ron Washington wanted Nelson Cruz to stay in the game so he could have an opportunity to celebrate with the team on the field. Sure enough, the inning started and Feliz looked great to start, striking out the first batter. But things got hard. The next batter was Albert Pujols, who lasered a double in the gap. Then Lance Berkman reached base on a walk. But Feliz battled back and struck out Alan Craig to get the Rangers 1 out away from winning the World Series. But up to the plate came, well, you know his name, David Freese. His reputation in baseball history is widely known today, but at this point, the Rangers had no idea the amplitude of what he is capable of. Feliz got ahead of Freese 1-2 in the count, and got the Rangers 1 strike away from glory. The Rangers at this point put their outfield in a very deep no-doubles defense to prevent any balls from going over their heads.
About 5 steps farther out than they normally would be.
But then, on the very next pitch, this happened.
Into right, well hit. Back at the wall, it's off the wall. 1 run scores. Here comes Berkman. Freese has tied it. 7-7. Unbelievable.
This triple seemed like a play that most outfielders could have got to, especially playing this deep. Nelson Cruz was originally not even supposed to be in the game at this point. This was supposed to be Andy Chavez out there, who was a great defensive outfielder. But now, this critical mismanagement led to the game being all tied up. This aside, the Rangers got out of the last inning. Then, in the top of the 10th, Hamilton got revenge.
There's a shot into right. Back at the track. At the wall. Hamilton has gone deep.
So, yet again, the Rangers were up 3 outs away from winning the World Series. Now, the Rangers turned to left-hander Darren Oliver, who opponents were hitting 191 off of in the postseason. But he was the next Rangers pitcher to fumble in the big moment, as he allowed back-to-back hits to start off the inning. And then the Cardinals made it a 1-run game on an RBI groundout. Luckily, this groundout made it 2 outs. The Rangers smartly walked Albert Pujols, and Scott Feldman, who had a 2.08 ERA in the postseason, just needed 1 out against Lance Berkman. He got Berkman down 1-2 in the count, making the Rangers a single strike away from winning yet again. But unfortunately, the Rangers couldn't get it done again.
In the air to right center. This game is tied.
In the top of the 11th, the Rangers' bats went cold and couldn't fight across any runs. So, it was tied heading into the bottom of the 11th. The Rangers called for pitcher Mark Lowe to throw in the 11th. Lowe had a hamstring injury and was not on the Rangers roster for the first 2 rounds of the postseason, and so far in the World Series, only had 1 inning under his belt. This was a risky call, but Lowe had dreamed of this moment. He told reporters, "If you don't want to be in the situation I was in as a pitcher, you're in the wrong business." But in this hero-defining, career-defining moment, Lowe was forced to face David Freese. The same guy who saved the Cardinals' season just 2 innings ago was up at the plate to lead off the inning. And with 1 swing of the bat, a Cardinals legend was born, as David Freese would force 1 more game tomorrow night.
Freese hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
The Rangers went on to lose Game 7, 6-2, ending what was an amazing season in complete heartbreak. Everyone looks back on their chance to win it in Game 6. This Game 6 loss had so many opportunities that could have gone the other way. Cruz could have caught the ball in right, or Endy Chavez could have been there to catch it. Chavez said the next day, "I know something for sure. I didn't sleep that night just thinking about it." Then the Rangers had another chance to win it, and their bullpen, which had been great all postseason, couldn't hold on. And if CJ Wilson, months ago, didn't give up the home run in the All-Star game, the Rangers would have been at home for this game. The shocking loss exemplifies how in the great game of baseball, a sport played with no clock, a game is never over until it's over. This loss was a cumulative choke by all members of the Rangers, and one that still haunts all involved to this day. After winning the 2011 World Series, the St. Louis Cardinals were on a mission to repeat this in 2012, but they faced an uphill battle going on the road to face the Nationals in Game 5 of the NLDS. The Nationals came into 2012 as a team on the rise. After a mediocre 80-81 record in 2011, they stunned everyone by finishing with the best record in baseball at 98-64. They were led by 19-year-old phenom Bryce Harper, who earned Rookie of the Year honors and was already becoming a superstar. On offense, Adam LaRoche quietly delivered a stellar season with a 127 OPS plus and finished 6th in MVP voting. Where the Nationals truly shined was their pitching. Gio Gonzalez led the majors with 21 wins and posted a sparkling 2.89 ERA. Behind him were Jordan Zimmerman and Steven Strasburg, making their rotation one of the league's best. This team looked built for October baseball, and they entered the postseason with sky-high expectations. Game 5 of the NLDS began like a dream for Washington. In the bottom of the first inning, Jason Worth doubled. Bryce Harper followed with an RBI triple, and Ryan Zimmerman crushed a 2-run homer to give the Nationals an early 3-0 lead. By the third inning, Harper smashed a solo homer, and a few batters later, Michael Morse launched a 2-run shot into the bullpen to make it 6-0. With a commanding lead and ace Gio Gonzalez dealing, the Nationals had a 96% win probability. It looked like the series was theirs, but the Cardinals had other plans. In the top of the fourth, St. Louis scratched across a run to make it 6-1. Then, in the fifth inning, things started to unravel for Gio. 2 hits and a walk loaded the bases, and a pass ball brought in another run. Gonzalez issued 2 more walks, forcing in a run, making it 6-3. His night was over. The Nationals still led, but their once dominant grip on the game was starting to slip. The Cardinals inched closer in the 7th when Edwin Jackson, pitching in relief, gave up another run to make it 6-4. By the 8th inning, Tyler Clippard came on for Washington, but Daniel Descalso launched a homer to cut the Nationals' lead to just 1 run. St. Louis had scored 5 unanswered runs. In the bottom of the 8th, the Nationals desperately needed insurance runs. Adam LaRoche and Michael Morse delivered back-to-back singles, and Kurt Suzuki drove in a run to extend Washington's lead to 7-5. Now, they were 3 outs away from advancing to the NLCS. But this is baseball, and in baseball, nothing's guaranteed. The Nationals elected to pitch Drew Storen for the 9th inning since they used their typical closer, Tyler Clippard, in the 8th. Storen was having a great year, where he had a 2.37 ERA and had elite command, only walking 2.4 batters per 9. Going into the postseason, Storen had gone 21 straight appearances without a walk, a streak that started on August 21st, almost 2 months before this game. Storen allowed a hit to Carlos Beltran to start off the inning, but bounced right back and got 2 straight outs. The Nationals were now 1 out away from advancing. Yadier Molina stepped up to the plate, and he worked a 3-2 count. Storen just had to throw 1 more strike to end this game, but he released his slider a little too early and left it up, resulting in a walk. Storen's walk streak was over, and now the game continued. The next batter, David Freese. Storen got him in the exact same situation with a 3-2 count, 1 strike away from winning the game. But He couldn't quite locate his fastball and walked freeze to load the bases. Storen just needed one out, but Daniel Descalso delivered for the Cardinals yet again.
Down to the wire in this game. And there's a ball hit off the glove. Up Desmond. 2 runs are going to score. The Cardinals will tie it up.
The Nationals kept Storen out for the next batter, and the Cardinals' 2-out magic wasn't over.
Here's the 2-2 pitch, and a line drive to right field. It's going to be a base hit. 2 runs will score, and the Cardinals take a 9-7 lead.
What seemed like an inning Drew Storen would get out of in his sleep turned into 4 runs, all because he lost his command. It's crazy that sometimes in the biggest moments, players lose control of what they do best. But to the Cardinals' credit, they kept battling and put pressure on Storen throughout this inning to make it much harder than a regular appearance. In the bottom of the 9th, the Nationals had their 2, 3, and 4 batters up, but they went down on 3 straight outs, and their season came to an end. The 2013 ALCS was more than just a battle to reach the World Series. It was a showdown between 2 teams with incredible storylines. On one hand, the Boston Red Sox were a team reborn, going from last place in 2012 to first in 2013. On the other hand, the Detroit Tigers were a powerhouse, looking to take the next step. For the Red Sox, 2013 was all about redemption. Under new manager John Farrell, the team embraced a gritty, resilient identity. Their lineup, led by ageless David Ortiz and supported by key additions like Shane Victorino and Mike Napoli, was relentless, finishing first in the league in runs scored and OPS. On the mound, they had John Lester and a dominant bullpen anchored by Koji Uehara. This turned the Red Sox into a complete, well-rounded team. The Tigers, meanwhile, had been a force in the American League for years, and 2013 was no different. With a 93-69 record and a 3rd straight appearance in the ALCS, Detroit boasted one of the most fearsome rosters in baseball. Their offense was led by reigning AL MVP Miguel Cabrera, who flirted with another triple crown despite battling injuries. Prince Fielder added power and protection into the lineup. The rotation was also historic. Max Scherzer won the Cy Young Award with a 21-3 record and a 2.9 ERA, while Justin Verlander, Anibal Sanchez, and Doug Fister gave Detroit arguably the most intimidating pitching staff in baseball. The ALCS was a clash of styles, Boston's gritty clutch offense versus Detroit's overwhelming pitching. It was a matchup of redemption versus unfinished business. The stage was set for an unforgettable series that would swing on some of the most dramatic moments in postseason history. Game 1 at Fenway saw the Tigers sneak out a 1-0 win behind a dominant 6 no-hit inning performance from Anibal Sanchez. The Red Sox didn't get a hit until the 9th inning. So, taking Game 1 on the road was huge for the Tigers, and things looked great for them as they have Max Scherzer on the mound for Game 2. Game 2 began, and Scherzer, as expected, was dealing. He didn't allow a hit through the first 5 innings of the game. Then, in the top of the 6th, the Tigers' offense backed him up. A Miguel Cabrera home run, followed by a Victor Martinez RBI double, and an Alex Avila home run, made this a 5-0 game, going into the bottom of the 6th. In the 6th, Scherzer finally allowed his first hits of the game, allowing a single to Shane Victorino, and then he scored on a Dustin Pedroia double. It was 5-1, and Scherzer and the Tigers still had the game in control. In the 7th, Scherzer tossed a 1-2-3 inning to keep the score where it was. However, he was at 108 pitches by the end of this inning, and despite a dominant 13 strikeout 2-hit performance, the Tigers would have to turn to their bullpen for the 8th. The Tigers had a few arms available and first chose to go with Jose Veras to face Stephen Drew. On one pitch, he got the first out of the inning. Then, the next batter, Will Middlebrooks, got the Red Sox offense going with a double. The Red Sox now had the top of their lineup up to the plate, and the Tigers pulled Veras for lefty Drew Smyly to face lefty Jacoby Ellsbury. Smyly was 24 years old and had already made 7 pretty high-leverage postseason appearances to this point. He was a great option in this situation, although Ellsbury made this a really tough at-bat and forced a walk. Now, with runners on first and second, 1 out, Tigers manager Jim Leyland elected to change pitchers to Al Albuquerque. He got the job done versus Shane Victorino and got the Tigers 1 out away. But then, Dustin Pedroia kept the inning going with this base hit. Now this put the game-tying run to the plate, and this was controlled by none other than David Ortiz. Ortiz hadn't got a hit yet all series, as he was 0-6 with 4 strikeouts. Jim Leyland decided his best way to attack Ortiz was bringing in closer Joaquin Benoit for a 4-out save. Benoit was 24 for 26 in save opportunities this year, and had allowed 0 home runs versus Ortiz in 22 at-bats. All data suggested this was the right matchup, but in the playoffs, you never know.
Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game!
The Tigers were 1 out away from getting out of the jam, potentially 1 out away from stealing 2 road games in Boston and going up 2-0. But it took them 4 pitchers to get out of this 8th inning, an inning where all hopes and dreams were crushed by the swing of the bat. This one swing by Ortiz flipped the series around and increased the Red Sox win probability by 45% from 7 to 53. And ever since this swing, it was a disaster for the Tigers. In the bottom of the 9th, Tigers brought in starter Rick Porcello to try and keep the game tied at 5. The first batter of the inning, Johnny Gomes, hit a jam shot to shortstop Jose Iglesias. Iglesias, only 23 at this point, had just subbed into the game as a defensive replacement for Johnny Peralta. Iglesias was the Tigers' best defender, and a hit in the hole like this would probably warrant no throw, but Iglesias for some reason tried to make a play, and threw this ball to first. The throw wasn't good, but it wasn't awful, and it pulled Prince Fielder off the base. Prince Fielder, despite his name, wasn't a great fielder, and let this ball get past him. Gomes advanced to second on this poor throw. Then Porcello got the next batter, Gerrit Saltamavacchia, to pop up, but again, Prince Fielder just missed a play at first. The Tigers were again inches from getting out of the jam. This gave Saltamavacchia another chance. On the very next pitch, Porcello threw it to the backstop, and now the winning run was on third base. Then, the pitch after that, Saltamavacchia tied up the series.
That's a base hit! Red Sox win it! This series tied!
The Tigers' bullpen and defense had collapsed in the biggest game of the year. Now, all momentum was on Boston's side after the Tigers' choke of Game 2, and Boston went on to win 3 of the next 4 to win the series. Detroit was a team that was built to win a title. They were so close to doing it this season. Just, sometimes in baseball, 1 or 2 bad innings can determine the outcome of an entire series and change the narrative around a team forever. The Red Sox capped their incredible 2013 season by winning the World Series, and at the heart of their postseason success was Jon Lester. The left-handed ace was nothing short of dominant, posting a 4-1 record with a stunning 1.56 ERA over 34.2 innings. Lester became a hero in Boston, cementing his legacy as one of the franchise's greatest postseason performers. But the magic didn't carry over to 2014. The Red Sox struggled to recapture their championship form, losing key hitters in free agency and falling out of contention early. By the trade deadline, Boston transitioned from contenders to sellers. In a move that stunned fans, they traded their legendary ace, Jon Lester, to the Oakland Athletics. Now, with a new team, Lester was given a chance to shine once again, this time on a different stage. As the ace starter for the 2014 AL wildcard game, he had an opportunity to deliver another heroic performance, this time for Oakland. Throughout this game, the A's had one huge problem: holding base runners on. To say Jon Lester was bad at holding base runners on would be an understatement. Lester in 2013 began developing issues throwing to first base. It was so bad that he stopped doing pickoff moves altogether. After April, he didn't attempt another pickoff all year. Then in 2014, Lester didn't attempt a single pickoff. Because Lester didn't throw to first, teams began to take bigger and bigger leads against him.
You think I like looking over, especially being left-handed, you think I like looking over there and seeing the guy 20 feet off the bag? Like, that's not fun for me either.
The Royals came into the wildcard game ready to exploit this flaw in Lester's game. the Royals led all of baseball with 153 stolen bases. They were known for being the smartest base running team and playing small ball. Like how right away in the first inning, Nori Aoki gets a great jump and steals this base on Lester.
Here's the throw to second, no chance.
Now with 2 outs, he's in great scoring position, and the next batter, Billy Butler, drills a single into left field. Aoki, who is now on second base, easily scores and cuts the A's lead in half. In the third inning, Lester allowed 2 more runs, which gave the Royals a 3-2 lead. In this inning, A's catcher Giovanni Soto left the game with a thumb injury sustained in a play at the plate. Soto had started the game because he was better at controlling the running game of the Royals, despite not being the everyday starter. Derek Norris came in to catch now, and he was not great against base runners. This now set up an awful combination for the A's to try and control the Royals, but it didn't matter for a while. Lester settled in and retired the next 6 batters after this inning to keep the game where it was. And in the top of the 6th inning, Brandon Moss hit a 3-run bomb to put the A's back ahead 5-3. Then Derek Norris and Coco Crisp each got 2-out RBI hits to make it 7-3. Lester shut down the Royals again in the 6th and 7th inning. He went onto the mound to pitch in the bottom of the 8th, holding a 4-run lead, but this was where the Royals began to exploit the A's poor base running defense. The first batter, Alcides Escobar, reached on a single that maybe could have been an error. Then, of course, this happened.
Up and getting loose, and it's Gregerson as the runner goes. And the throw is high.
Escobar advanced on a ground out, and then Lorenzo Cain drove him in with a single. Then, on cue, Lorenzo Cain stole second base. Lester walked the next batter, Eric Hosmer, and his night was over. This, unfortunately, was not where the Royals' damage on the base paths stopped. But first, newly entered pitcher Luke Gregerson allowed a hit to Billy Butler that made the game 7-5. Then Terrence Gore came in to pinch run for Butler and stole a base. Right after this stolen base, Gregerson was rattled and threw a wild pitch that Norris couldn't block, and the Royals made it a 1-run game. Fast forward to the bottom of the 9th inning. The A's are 3 outs away from winning the wildcard game and now have closer Sean Doolittle on the mound to help them. But in typical Royals fashion, they get a bloop single, then bunt pinch runner Jared Dyson over, and right after that, of course, Dyson does this.
There goes Dyson. Throw to third. He is safe.
With the tying run on third, now Nori Aoki hits a sac fly to tie the game up. The game goes into extras, and both teams do nothing offensively through the 10th and 11th innings. In the top of the 12th, Alberto Ciasco delivered an RBI single and made it 8-7 A's. So we head to the bottom of the 12th. The A's are in position yet again to close the game out, this time on the back of Dan Otero. Otero gets Lorenzo Cain to ground out to start the inning. Next up is Eric Hosmer, who hits a deep fly ball to left center, and oh no. Left fielder Johnny Gomes and center fielder Sam Fold collide on this difficult play at the wall, and Hosmer makes it all the way to third base. The tying run is now 90 feet away, and the Royals do Royals things by getting the weakest infield single ever to tie it up. Now Jason Hamill enters the game, and the Royals have 2 outs. In this 2-out situation, everyone's expecting Christian Colon to steal second base to get into scoring position. The A's didn't want the winning run to get into scoring position, but Colon was in their head. Hamill begins attempting pickoffs, stepping off and doing quick deliveries to keep Colon at first. Hamill went ahead of Salvador Perez 1-2, and instead of focusing on the batter, he did a pitch out, and it didn't go as planned. The A's knew it was coming, but were so worried and over-anxious that by the time it came to execute, Norris couldn't hang on to the ball. Now, the winning run is on second base, and this is all the Royals needed.
Pass through into left field. The Kansas City Royals are walking off into the ALDS.
The Royals in this game proved that baseball is not about flashy home runs. They proved that taking advantage and chipping away in small ways with steals can be an effective strategy. They knew Lester's struggle to hold runners on, and they exploited it, and they knew the odds were in their favor when Derek Norris came in at catcher, and they exploited it. When manager Bob Melvin was asked about if the change at catcher affected their play, he said this.
It affected us at the end, no doubt about it. We were still in a position to win the game a couple times, but it did affect it.
It was clear that the A's had the worst combo to combat the Royals' base running, and the 7 stolen bases they allowed were a major difference in this game. The loss continued a streak in which the Athletics lost a game in which they could have won to advance to the next round. They had previously lost Game 5 in the ALDS in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2012, and 2013. Unfortunately for the A's, they're still searching to get over that hump to this day. Another team that's known for getting so close but always falling short during this time was the Texas Rangers. We've already discussed their disaster collapse in 2011, but the 2015 ALDS might hurt Rangers fans just as much. The 2015 ALDS was a showdown between the experienced Texas Rangers and the hungry Toronto Blue Jays, making their first postseason appearance since 1993. The Rangers, with playoff appearances in 4 of the previous 6 years, knew what to expect in big games. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays, led by MVP Josh Donaldson and 40-plus home run sluggers Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion, were determined to make their mark. Through the first 2 games, the Rangers' experience seemed to give them the edge as they took a 2-0 series lead. But the Blue Jays came alive in Game 3, winning 5-1, and Game 4 saw the Rangers crumble as Derek Holland allowed 6 runs in just 2 innings, tying the series at 2-2. Game 5 shifted to Toronto, where the city was hosting its first playoff decider in 22 years. The atmosphere was electric. What followed was absolute chaos. A game defined by controversial calls, heated arguments, shocking errors, and unforgettable clutch moments. For the Rangers, it felt like everything that could go wrong did. This wasn't just a game, it was a dramatic, unpredictable classic that still stands as one of the craziest in postseason history. Game 5 featured a classic pitching matchup between experience and youth. Cole Hamels versus Marcus Stroman. Cole Hamels was 31 at this time with tons of experience, facing up against Marcus Stroman, who was 24. They both pitched gems, holding the opposing team to just 2 runs each by the end of the 6th. The chaos truly began in the 7th, when Blue Jays catcher Russell Martin, attempting to throw a ball back to the pitcher, accidentally hit the bat of Sin-Chu Chu. The runner on third wisely ran home, but since this was a 1-in-a-million play, it caused so much confusion. The umpire called it batter interference on Chu, and made the runner go back to third. But the Rangers began to argue, and all the umpires got together to discuss this. Since they had never seen a play like this before, they spent an entire 18 minutes discussing what to do. The umpires decided that since Chu was in the batter's box and did not intentionally try to affect the throw of the catcher, this was not interference, and the run therefore counts. Blue Jays manager John Gibbons erupted and began a huge argument with the umpires. A Blue Jays player on the bench was ejected for yelling at the umps, and while all this was going on, fans went berserk and started throwing cans on the field. Blue Jays players had to tell fans to calm down, and this was quickly becoming a very hostile environment. The reactions to this weird play may have gotten into the heads of the Rangers, since at the bottom of the 7th, they couldn't make a routine play to save their lives. It all started when Elvis Andrus booted a routine ground ball at shortstop. This was a play he would make pretty much every time. Then, with the next batter, Cole Hamels gets him to hit a weak grounder to first. This is a perfect opportunity for a double play to cancel out Elvis's error, but first baseman Mitch Moreland spikes his throw to second base and Elvis can't scoop it. Everyone's safe. The next batter up is Ryan Goins, and this was a known bunting situation. He puts a bunt down the third base line, and Adrian Beltre fields it and makes a perfect throw to Elvis Andrus covering third base, who drops it. The Rangers now have committed 3 straight errors. This inning should be over. It should be 3 outs. But instead, it's bases loaded, no outs. Now, with Ben Revere at the plate, Cole Hamels does his job again and forces another ground ball. The Rangers throw home and get the force out. Now, the Rangers pull Hamels with Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista due up. They brought in Sam Dyson, who they acquired from the Marlins at the trade deadline. He was their highest leverage reliever this year as he had a 1.15 ERA and had not allowed an earned run in 20 appearances dating back to August 27th, and Dyson started off just how he wanted, jamming Josh Donaldson. However, this little bloop that should have been a routine pop-out, Rangers second baseman Rougned Odor misplayed it, and it fell into right field. 1 run scored and the game was tied up. Luckily, the Rangers got a force out at second, but this play, Odor clearly did not see off the bat well, and he let a ball fall that most second basemen would get to. Now Dyson had his hardest challenge yet, Jose Bautista, with the season on the line.
1-1 for Dyson. Bautista with a drive. Deep left field. No doubt about it.
After this home run, and the most iconic bat flip in baseball history, the bench is clear and fans start throwing stuff again. Dyson finally gets the Rangers out of the inning after forcing a pop-out. The inning that started at 6:13 p.m. is now over at 7:06 p.m. And as Dyson walks off the field, he touches and says something to Troy Tulowitzki, and the bench is clear again. Because of course they did. After Bautista's home run, the offense for both sides quieted down. The Rangers managed just one more hit for the rest of the game, with several of their star hitters striking out in crucial moments. After a wild and chaotic game highlighted by an unforgettable 7th inning, the Rangers' season came to a bitter end. In a game like baseball, we learn time and time again, the team that makes mistakes will be in trouble. In baseball, opportunities are precious, and for some teams, they feel like they may never come. Mistakes teach us that every play matters, but they also remind us that when the moment arrives, it's about making the most of it. For the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, the 2016 World Series wasn't just a championship. It was an opportunity they had both been waiting for what felt like forever. The Cubs had endured 108 years without a title, the longest drought in baseball history, while the Indians had gone 68 years since their last championship in 1948. Both teams had spent generations longing for this chance, and now, after decades of waiting, they were finally on sports' biggest stage, with history on the line. The Chicago Cubs entered the 2016 World Series as a team built for greatness, carrying the weight of a century worth of heartbreak and near misses. They were led by a young core of stars like NL MVP Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo. The Cubs boasted a balanced lineup that could hit for power and play excellent defense. Their pitching staff was equally as impressive, with 3 veterans, Jake Arrieta, John Lester, and Kyle Hendricks, who all finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. On the other side, the Cleveland Indians came into the World Series as underdogs, but they brought in a resilient lineup and a dominant bullpen. They were managed by Terry Francona, who brought World Series winning experience from his days with Boston, and it really felt like this team had what it took to win it all. The Indians started off the World Series with a statement, smoking the Cubs 6-0 in Game 1. Game 2, Jake Arrieta performed a masterclass and held the Indians to only 4 hits as the Cubs evened the series. But Game 3, the Indians gave it right back to them, using 4 pitchers to turn in a complete game 1-0 shutout win. Then, Game 4, the Indians' bats came alive, and thanks to 8 hits from Carlos Santana, Francisco Lindor, and Jason Kipnis, the Indians cruised to a 7-2 win. At this point, the Indians lead the series 3-1. Out of all best-of-7 postseason series, teams that have dropped 3 of the first 4 have come back to win only 12 out of 93 times, roughly 13% of the time. Across sports, a 3-1 lead was considered super safe. Just 4 months prior to the World Series, the Golden State Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers. This blown series started a huge wave of memes from Cleveland fans mocking the Warriors for blowing a lead. Now, that same city was up 3-1. Surely it wouldn't happen to them. Surely karma wouldn't bite them. Game 5 of the World Series was a do-or-die game for the Chicago Cubs, and they decided to throw John Lester this game. Now, we already talked about Jon Lester for the biggest choke in 2014. In 2016, Lester changed things up. He decided it doesn't matter if people ran on him, and was just going to lock in and do everything he can to get batters out. This was Lester's best year of his career. He posted a 19-5 record with a 2.44 ERA and was second in NL Cy Young voting. Game 5 would be the ultimate chance for Lester to redeem himself and go from a playoff choker to a playoff hero. This is exactly what he did. In this game, Lester went 6 strong innings while only allowing 2 runs and 4 hits. This gave the Cubs a great chance to win, and it seemed like every bit of magic was falling on their side. This game was filled with bizarre plays in foul territory that the Cubs somehow got every single time. This, combined with multiple infield hits for the Cubs, gave the Cubs a 3-2 lead and all of the momentum. After Lester left the game, Aroldis Chapman put in 2 2/3 innings of dominant pitching to close it out and make the series 3-2. But in the grand scheme of things, this would have been the hard game for the Indians to win. They were on the road, facing the Cubs' ace. If the Indians wanted to close out the World Series, their better shot was at home, and now the series was heading to Cleveland for Game 6. The Indians had Josh Tomlin on the mound for Game 6, who had been dominant all postseason. Game 6, unfortunately, was a different kind of story. Kris Bryant got things started with a towering home run. This was followed by Rizzo and Zobrist back-to-back hits. Yet Tomlin had a chance to get out of the inning when he got Addison Russell to pop up. Oh no. There was a miscommunication in right center field by Lonnie Chisenhall and Tyler Naquin, and the ball is down. 2 runs scored. Instead of the inning being over with minimal damage after a routine pop fly, it's 3-0 Cubs. Then, in the bottom of the third, the Cubs loaded the bases with a few base hits, and Mike Tomlin's night was over. Dan Otero came in for relief, and the first batter he faced, this happened.
2-0. High fly ball to left center. At the wall. Grand slam.
This home run completely changed the course of the game, and from here on out, the Indians conserved their high-leverage pitchers knowing they had no chance, and they had to prepare for Game 7. The Indians went on to lose 9-2, and with the series tied 3-3, we were now in store for one of the best Game 7s in sports history. The Indians had their ace, Corey Kluber, on the mound for the deciding game. This was the guy that any team would want out there, but right away, the Cubs striked.
That's in the air to center. Back at the wall. It is gone. What a start.
This was not an ideal start for Kluber and the Indians, but luckily in the third inning, Carlos Santana drove in a run to tie, and things were back evened up. In the fourth inning, Kluber did not look sharp. Kris Bryant reached on a single, then he hit Anthony Rizzo. This led to Bryant scoring on a sac fly, and another run scoring on a Wilson Contreras double. In the top of the fifth, the Indians got into more trouble. Javi Baez led off the inning with a homer. Terry Francona knew Kluber didn't have his best stuff and had a very short leash with him. Interestingly enough, Francona put Andrew Miller in the game super early in the fifth inning. Some fans questioned this move, but Francona's mindset was this was the last game of the year. Don't worry about saving guys for later. Put out all your cards now. Miller had only allowed 1 run over 13 innings prior to this game, but it looked like he lost his gas this game. Against the Cubs' middle of the lineup, he struggled. Kris Bryant worked a walk, then Anthony Rizzo drove him in with an RBI single. In the bottom of the fifth, the Cubs made a pitching change of their own, putting in Jon Lester for Kyle Hendricks. Lester was pitching on only 3 days of rest, but he really gave it his all this game. A bizarre wild pitch made things 5-3 and put the Indians right back in the game. Then, in the top of the sixth, more struggles continued for Andrew Miller as he allowed a home run to David Ross to dead center. On the other side, Lester threw 2 straight scoreless innings, and it was 6-3 Cubs going into the 8th. The Cubs rode Lester to get the first 2 outs of the 8th and pulled him for Aroldis Chapman after allowing an infield single. It looked like the game might be over with Chapman on the mound, but the Indians kept fighting. Brandon Guyer lined an RBI double to make it 6-4. Then Rajai Davis, down 2 strikes and 2 outs, had one of the most iconic moments in baseball history.
Drive into left. At the wall. It's gone. Tie game. Rajai Davis.
3 runs with 2 outs for the Indians, and the game was all tied. All momentum was on their side, and they were just 1 run away from winning the World Series. Bryan Shaw held the Cubs scoreless in the top half of the 9th, and after Cleveland went scoreless in the bottom of the 9th, the game went into a rain delay. After a 17-minute rain delay, the game resumed. Normally, managers are weary to run pitchers back out after a rain delay. Nonetheless, in the top of the 10th, the Indians kept Bryan Shaw out for his 2nd inning of work. Unfortunately, he couldn't get the job done. After allowing a hit and intentionally walking a batter to start the inning, he allowed Ben Zobrist and Miguel Montero to get RBI hits to make it 8-6 Cubs. Many fans speculate that the rain delay threw off Shaw and he didn't have his best stuff after it. The Indians replaced Shaw for Trevor Bauer after this, and if there was one decision that was questionable in this game, it would probably be why didn't they go with Bauer sooner here. Bauer, despite not having the best postseason, was an overall better option and could have potentially helped out when Shaw got into trouble early in the inning. With 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th, Rajai Davis delivered another huge RBI hit, although ultimately the Indians couldn't put across an 8th run, and the Cubs ended up being the team to beat the long drought and win the World Series.
The Cubs win the World Series. Bryan makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally won it all.
The Indians once had a 3-1 lead in the World Series, just 1 win away from being champions. However, miscommunications, poor pitching, and missed opportunities led to them blowing this lead. Despite having back-to-back games at home to close out the series, they couldn't get the job done. Still, the team showed an incredible fight. A reminder that in baseball, things don't always go your way. Only one team can win. One choke doesn't define a player or a team. Just look at John Lester, who bounced back from a tough loss 2 years prior and became a playoff hero for the Cubs, helping win it all. Baseball has a way of coming full circle, and in 2017, the Indians aimed to reverse their fortunes. In 2017, the Indians brought new attitude, and they were great. The free agent addition of Edwin Encarnacion brought much-needed power to the lineup, and Corey Kluber said being an all-star was not enough, as he went 18-4 with a 2.25 ERA en route to winning the Cy Young. The Indians were not just good this year, they were dominant. At one point, they won 22 straight games, and they went on to win 102 total games. They won the AL Central, and things looked great to start the ALDS versus the wildcard Yankees. Game 1, Trevor Bauer pitched a dominant 6 2/3 scoreless innings, where he struck out 8 and only allowed 3 base runners. Then, Game 2 was a total roller coaster. After trailing 8-3, the Indians made a crazy comeback. Francisco Lindor hit a clutch grand slam, and then they won in 13 innings after a Yan Gomes walk-off single. The Indians led the best-of-5 series 2-0, and after the emotional Game 2 win, looked like they were destined to win the series. Game 3 was a pitching duel between Carlos Carrasco and Masahiro Tanaka. Both pitchers threw 6 scoreless innings, and the Indians had some great chances to score. Like when Francisco Lindor almost hit a 2-run home run, but Aaron Judge robbed them, and Zach Campbell. But in the 7th inning, the dominant Andrew Miller folded in a big moment again. Not against Aaron Judge, who had 52 home runs, or Gary Sanchez, who had 33. No, he allowed this home run to Greg Bird, who only had 4 career home runs against lefties prior to this game. Yeah, this unexpected home run ended up being the only run scored this game, as the Indians' bats continued to be ice cold and the Yankees won 1-0. Game 4 was even more of a disaster for the Indians. It started with a Gio Urshela error in the 2nd inning. Then Trevor Bauer, who was dominant in Game 1, was a mess this game. He was clearly frustrated with an error and a controversial check swing call. With 2 outs in the 2nd inning, he couldn't keep his composure and allowed 4 straight hits, and it was 4-0 Yankees. Bauer's night ended in the 2nd inning, and this was too big of a deficit for the Indians to climb back from, as they only got 3 hits the rest of the game and lost 7-3. Now, the Indians' season was crumbling right in front of them, and they faced a must-win Game 5. Luckily, they had Cy Young winner Corey Kluber on the mound in the biggest game of the year. But who knew that Didi Gregorius had Kluber's number?
Gregorius with a drive to right field and gone!
The 0-1. Swung on and hit in the air to right field. That ball is high. It is far. It is gone. He's done it again.
The Indians battled back in the bottom of the 5th with 4 straight singles. Then they had Francisco Lindor up with the tying run on second and go-ahead run on first. But he grounded into 2 and killed all the momentum. The game remained 3-2 until the top of the 9th, but after a 12-pitch at-bat by Brett Gardner that resulted in a single and the ball being thrown around, the Yankees went up 5-2. In the bottom of the 9th, the Indians' bats remained cold, and the series was over. The main problem for the Indians was the disappearance of their stars in the big games. In games 3 through 5, Jose Ramirez, Edwin Encarnacion, and Francisco Lindor hit a combined 2 for 26 and had 0 RBIs. The Indians needed these 3 to win, and they did nothing when it mattered most. This is what happens sometimes. Playoff baseball is way different than the regular season, and every year we see a different star choke when the lights get brighter. And that continued in 2018 with Clayton Kershaw. For the last decade, Clayton Kershaw had probably been the most dominant pitcher in baseball. He had 7 All-Star appearances, led the league in ERA 5 times, and had 3 Cy Youngs, and even won an MVP. But despite all this success, going into the 2018 postseason, Clayton Kershaw had a 4.35 career postseason ERA. Kershaw's postseason shortcomings were a large reason the Dodgers had gone 5 straight postseasons without winning a World Series. This postseason, Kershaw was determined to prove everyone who doubted him. And he got off to a great start, throwing his best career postseason game against the Braves in the NLDS, where he went 8 scoreless innings and only allowed 2 hits. Then, the Dodgers made the NLCS, and Kershaw was up and down, but ultimately, in Game 7, came in and got the last out for the Dodgers to help them go to the World Series. Yet, the World Series is what everyone remembers Kershaw for, and for all the wrong reasons. Kershaw got the ball in Game 1 of the World Series versus the Boston Red Sox. This was Kershaw's first career start at Fenway, and he got rudely greeted by them, as he allowed back-to-back hits to Mookie Betts and Andrew Benintendi to start the game. Then, JD Martinez drove in another run to make it 2-0 after the first. Fast forward a few innings, and JD Martinez gets to Kershaw again, this time an RBI double. Then, in the 5th inning, Betts and Benintendi both get on Kershaw, and the Dodgers decide to pull him. Both Betts and Benintendi scored, so these runs were charged to Kershaw. The Dodgers went on to lose Game 1, 8-4, and Kershaw's final stat line was 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 3 walks, and 5 runs allowed. This was not the Clayton Kershaw anyone was used to. After the game, all Kershaw could say was, "The slider wasn't good tonight. They made me pay for that." Luckily for Kershaw, he had a chance at redemption in Game 5. The Red Sox were leading the series 3-1, but all it takes is one game to turn a series around. However, Game 5 began and nothing was going Kershaw's way. The damage started when Kershaw hung a slider to Benintendi, who laced a single to get the Red Sox rally going. Right after Kershaw's mistake to Benintendi, Steven Pearce put 2 runs on the board with 1 swing. After the rocky first inning, Kershaw settled in and didn't allow another run until the 6th inning. But in the 6th, Mookie Betts took him deep, and then in the 7th inning, JD Martinez did the same thing. Kershaw finished this game allowing 7 hits and 4 runs. The Dodgers went on to lose the game and the World Series. In the World Series, Kershaw was 0-2 and had a 7.36 ERA, proving once again he's not the same player in the postseason. Kershaw's letdown in the World Series will always be remembered, although in baseball, fans often remember single plays, whether they're good or bad. Like Willie Mays' catch in the World Series to Billy Buckner letting a routine ground ball go through his leg, to Joe Carter's walk-off home run, or even the infamous Steve Bartman incident. Baseball is a sport where one play can define an entire player's career, for the good or bad. And unfortunately, this looked like it was going to happen for all the wrong reasons in the 2019 NL wildcard game. The 2019 National League wildcard game was a showdown packed with tension, drama, and October energy as the Milwaukee Brewers faced off against the Washington Nationals at Nationals Park. Both teams entered the game with something to prove. The Nationals were eager to shed their reputation of postseason heartbreak, while the Brewers were riding the momentum of a late-season surge despite losing their star Christian Yelich to injury. The Brewers had the next man up mentality when Yelich got hurt. That opened a spot for 22-year-old rookie Trent Grisham in their outfield. Grisham stepped in great for the Brewers to end the season, and he consistently got on base, provided speed, and was a great defensive right fielder. Going into the wildcard game, Grisham had earned a start in right field and batted leadoff. The game began with Grisham working a great at-bat against Max Scherzer and forcing a walk. Then, on the very next pitch, Yasmani Grandal crushed a 2-run shot to put the Brewers ahead early. The Brewers extended the lead with an Eric Thames home run in the second. The Brewers had the game right where they wanted it, but in the 8th inning, things started to get scary for them. The Brewers brought in all-star reliever Josh Hader. He hit pinch hitter Michael Taylor, allowed a bloop hit to Ryan Zimmerman, and walked Anthony Rendon. Now the bases were loaded, with 2 outs and Juan Soto to the plate. In this moment, Soto hit the ball right to rookie Trent Grisham, and this led to a play Brewers fans would never want to see again. 1 run was guaranteed to score on Soto's hit, but Grisham's error secured a 2nd and 3rd run scoring. In one play, the game flipped from 3-1 Brewers to 4-3 Nationals, and the Brewers' win probability went from 82% down to 18. Trent Grisham had never committed an error in his short career prior to this one, but now in the biggest moment of his career, he made the biggest mistake of his life. The Brewers went on to go 0-3 in the top of the 9th and lost this game. To make matters worse, the Nationals ended up winning the World Series this season. All Brewers fans could think of is what could have been if Grisham didn't make that crucial error. Although any mistake can be used as motivation and a teaching point. After the 2019 season, Trent Grisham did everything he could to prevent errors like this from happening again. He went on to win 2 Gold Gloves and today is regarded as one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. It sucks to be thrown into the heat of the moment as a rookie, and everyone makes mistakes, but it's about what you do after the mistakes that matters the most. And Grisham has proven this play will not define his career. Players always have chances at redemption for their chokes, but being an MLB manager is not as easy. In baseball, you never really hear about managers unless things go wrong. And in 2020, the biggest choke came from a manager this time, from an in-game decision that is still talked about 4 years later. The 2020 MLB season was a year defined by the COVID-19 pandemic and shortened 60-game schedule. The Rays thrived, claiming the best record in the American League and storming through the playoffs with a mix of timely hitting, stellar defense, and their signature analytical approach. After surviving a grueling 7-game battle with the Houston Astros in the ALCS, Tampa Bay reached the World Series for the first time since 2008. They were taking on the powerhouse Los Angeles Dodgers. Despite being underdogs, the Rays fought valiantly, including a historic walk-off win in Game 4 that'll be remembered as one of the wildest finishes in World Series history.
Jansen, that is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arroyo's Arena coming around. Throw home, now he stumbles, but the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
By Game 6, Tampa Bay trailed the series 3-2, but had their ace, Blake Snell, on the mound. Snell was dominating the Dodgers lineup, striking out 9 batters and allowing just 2 hits through 5 1/3 innings. Then came the moment that would define the Rays' run. Manager Kevin Cash, staying true to the team's data-driven philosophy, made a controversial decision to pull Snell after a single in the 6th inning. Snell was obviously pissed when this happened. He'd been pitching one of the best games of his career and had plenty of gas left in the tank, as he only threw 73 pitches. So the Rays elected to go with a righty, Nick Anderson, to face Mookie Betts, and this shocked everyone. The decision was deemed an analytical decision, but even the analytics don't back up this decision. Everything that Kevin Cash said post-game didn't make sense.
You know what? Just felt like at that point Blake had given everything that we could have asked for out of him. Tough decision, gut-wrenching decision. Nick Anderson's been arguably the best reliever in baseball the last 2 years. We value information, and knowing how talented the Dodgers lineup is, to avoid any pitcher from seeing them three times through makes a lot of sense.
You know, it's going to be tough, man. Like, I get it's a third time through the lineup, but I mean, I think I'm going to make the adjustments I need to make as I see them, you know, a third time.
Was Blake Snell actually worse facing hitters the third time through the lineup? Well, it actually wasn't much different than when he faced hitters in their second plate appearance of the game. Hitters had an on-base percentage of .350 versus him in their second plate appearance, and .304 against him in their third plate appearance. Was Nick Anderson the best reliever in baseball? Well, certainly he hadn't been pitching like it this postseason. Anderson had allowed runs in 6 straight games this postseason. I wouldn't say he's the best option here. Or maybe Cash was trying to play matchups and face Betts against a right-hander to gain an advantage? Cash must have considered everything in this situation, right? Well, if he was making the best decision to help his club win, and considering everything, don't you think he would have looked at the splits and saw that Mookie Betts had been hitting .323 versus righties and only .200 versus lefties this year? It doesn't end there. Mookie's best pitch he faced this year was fastballs from right-handed pitchers. Against this, Mookie had hit .359. Anderson was not the right matchup against him, since he was a righty who threw fastballs versus righties 66.4% of the time. Sure enough, Anderson threw a fastball to Mookie, and this is what happened. Now, with runners on second and third, a run scored on this passed ball, and then a ground ball to first base scored Mookie right after it. All of a sudden, the Dodgers took a 2-1 lead, a lead they would ultimately hold on to as they clinched the World Series this game. The decision to pull Snell made no sense analytically, despite being deemed an analytics-based decision. This was just pure confusion, and even Snell was shocked by it. In the end, this was meant to be. Clayton Kershaw finally ended his cycle of postseason struggles and earned a World Series ring he so richly deserved, solidifying his legacy as one of the greatest pitchers of the 2000s. His dominance on the mound, coupled with his perseverance through years of playoff heartbreak, cements his place in baseball history. Another pitcher vying to carve out a legacy of greatness in this era is Gerrit Cole. The former #1 overall pick had everything to prove to himself as one of the game's best pitchers. But in 2021, 2 things were missing from Gerrit Cole's resume: a Cy Young Award and a World Series. Cole throughout his career had come insanely close to getting both of these. In 2019, Gerrit Cole went 20-5 with a 2.5 ERA and led baseball with 326 strikeouts, but was second in Cy Young voting to his teammate Justin Verlander. Any other year, Cole would have easily walked home with a Cy Young, but Verlander was just so dominant this year. Cole soon after went to the Yankees and wanted to change everything and prove himself as the game's top pitcher by finally earning a Cy Young and winning a ring. Gerrit Cole was the best pitcher in baseball to start the season. Over his first 11 starts, he posted a dominant 1.78 ERA and an impressive 12.7 strikeouts per 9. Everything seemed to be going perfectly for Cole, but in early June, a league-wide scrutiny began over pitchers using sticky substances to manipulate the ball and increase spin rates. Cole became the face of the controversy, with many accusing him of using these substances to his advantage. When asked directly about it, Cole was notably evasive.
Have you ever used spider tap while pitching?
I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest.
After MLB officially banned sticky substances on June 21st, Cole's numbers notably declined. Over his next 13 starts, his ERA jumped to 3.72, and he allowed 13 home runs. Despite these struggles, Cole's overall numbers in early September remained elite. He was 14-6 with a 2.75 ERA and was a clear frontrunner for the Cy Young Award. The Yankees looked like locks for the playoffs, and Cole seemed to silence his critics with a season-best 15 strikeout performance against the Angels. Unfortunately, September was when things unraveled for both Cole and the Yankees. In his final 3 starts, opposing batters hit for .329 against him and posted a dreadful 7.64 ERA. One of those games against Cleveland saw Cole give up 10 hits and 7 runs. His overall ERA ballooned from 2.75 to 3.23 in just 3 starts, and he fell out of Cy Young contention, eventually losing the award to Robbie Ray. Though Cole's collapse cost him the Cy Young, focus shifted to the Yankees' postseason hopes. All would be forgiven if Cole could just deliver a dominant performance to help New York beat their rivals from Boston in the wildcard game. Cole started the night with 2 quick outs, but then pitched around Rafael Devers to allow a base runner. Maybe Cole should have attacked Devers because the next batter, Xander Bogaerts, made him pay.
2-1 pitch. Bogaerts sends a drive to center field and deep. Gardner turns around and watches it fly!
This was a nightmare start for Cole, and it continued into the 3rd inning when Kyle Schwarber stepped up and gave a classic postseason Schwarbomb.
Oh, high and deep out to right field. Judge back and watching, and it's gone!
After Schwarber's homer, Cole allowed an infield single and was afraid to pitch to Rafael Devers again, so there was 2 on, no outs. At this point, Aaron Boone knew Cole didn't have his best stuff and shockingly pulled him. The Yankees went on to lose the game 6-2 and were eliminated. Cole did not take this loss lightly. Do-or-die playoff games are tough. At least everyone saw it coming from Cole. But the biggest choke from the 2022 MLB season, absolutely nobody saw coming. In 2022, MLB permanently extended the playoffs to 6 teams per league, introducing a wildcard round with 2 best-of-3 series in each league. This new format brought exciting matchups, including a clash between the Blue Jays and Mariners, showcasing offense versus pitching. The Blue Jays boasted the league's 4th best offense, while the Mariners featured the 2nd best pitching staff. Game 1 saw Mariners ace Luis Castillo dominate, silencing the Blue Jays' powerful lineup with a decisive 4-0 win. With their season on the line, the Blue Jays faced a must-win Game 2. The pitching matchup couldn't have been more fitting. Kevin Gausman, who Toronto signed over former Cy Young winner Robbie Ray, who now pitched for Seattle. Both pitchers had something to prove, and the stakes were sky high. Teoscar Hernandez delivered early fireworks, blasting home runs in the 2nd and 3rd innings off Ray to give Toronto a 4-0 lead. Robbie Ray's outing ended disastrously after just 3 innings. By the 5th, the Blue Jays extended their lead to 8-1, seemingly securing Game 2. But the Mariners had other plans. The momentum shifted in the 6th inning after Seattle rallied with 3 straight singles. Blue Jays manager John Schneider made a controversial call to pull Gausman despite his manageable 95 pitches. Lefty reliever Tim Meza entered to face the switch hitter Carlos Santana, who excelled against left-handed pitching. Meza's first pitch was a wild one, which allowed a run to score. 2 pitches later, Santana smashed a 3-run homer, cutting Toronto's lead to 8-5. Toronto added an insurance run in the 7th, making it 9-5, but the 8th inning unraveled into chaos. Mariners slugger Eugenio Suarez hit a fly ball down the left field line, but Raimel Tapia's inexplicable positioning left him too far away to make the play. Suarez eventually scored on a Cal Raleigh single, trimming the lead to 9-6. The Mariners then loaded the bases with no outs. Romano struck out 2 batters, seemingly regaining control. Then came the pivotal moment. J.P. Crawford hit a soft blooper into shallow center field, perfectly placed between Bo Bichette and George Springer. The miscommunication resulted in a collision and 3 runs scoring, tying the game at 9-9. In the 9th inning, Adam Frazier delivered a decisive blow with an RBI double, giving Seattle a 10-9 lead. Toronto had one final chance to save their postseason, but failed to capitalize. The Mariners completed one of the most stunning comebacks in MLB postseason history, becoming just the second team ever to erase a 7-run deficit in the playoffs. This devastating loss for the Blue Jays stemmed not from a single error, but from a cascade of questionable decisions and unfortunate plays. The collapse underscored the unpredictable nature of October baseball, a haunting memory for Toronto fans. Playoff baseball can be as heartbreaking as it is exhilarating. Fan bases invest their hearts and hopes, only to see everything fall apart in moments like this. For the Blue Jays, 2022 became the year of shattered dreams, a painful reminder of the sport's cruel beauty. Coming off a magical run to the 2022 World Series, expectations for the Phillies in 2023 were sky high. They roared into October, dominating the wildcard series, division series, and the first 2 games at the NLCS against the Diamondbacks. With their signature clutch hitting and unmatched home field advantage at Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies seemed unstoppable, cruising to a 2-0 series lead. Confidence turned into cockiness as Phillies fans bought tickets for Game 3 in Arizona just to leave the seats empty. And backup catcher Gerrit Stubbs boldly claimed that they'd celebrate a series win in the Diamondbacks pool. This overconfidence may have lit a fire under Arizona.
They're going to win tomorrow. 6-2, bet it. Let's go, Philly!
Game 3 appeared to favor Philadelphia on paper. Arizona sent rookie Brandon Pfaadt onto the mound, a pitcher with a 5.72 regular season ERA. Most expected another Phillies blowout, fueled by home runs. Instead, Pfaadt delivered the performance of his life, throwing 5.2 scoreless innings, allowing just 2 hits and striking out 9. Playoff demon Ranger Suarez matched Pfaadt's brilliance, keeping the game scoreless into the 7th inning. The Phillies broke through first, with Bryce Harper scoring on a pass ball, but the Diamondbacks responded immediately. Phillies rookie reliever Orion Kirkring gave up an RBI double to Lourdes Gurriel, tying the game. In the bottom of the 9th, the Phillies brought in all-star closer Craig Kimbrell to try and keep things tied. Kimbrell got into a bit of a jam and had runners on first and second, 2 outs. He was facing the 9-hitter and just had to escape him, but he couldn't and ended up walking him. This was a critical walk, since this put the Diamondbacks' hottest hitter, Ketel Marte, up to the plate, who, of course, walked it off. Game 4 brought more chaos. The Phillies' defense collapsed early, starting with an Alec Boehm throwing error. Later, pitcher Christopher Sanchez forgot the number of outs, casually tossing the ball to first instead of trying for the double play. This extended the inning. Arizona capitalized, scoring twice for an early lead. The Phillies responded, scoring 5 unanswered runs to take a 5-2 lead by the 7th inning. But the bullpen faltered again. With 2 outs in the 7th, Kirkring walked back-to-back batters, allowing a run to score. Then Kimbrell, pitching for a second straight night, unraveled in the 8th, surrendering a leadoff double to Gurriel and a game-tying homer to Alec Thomas. Arizona took the lead on Gabriel Moreno's RBI single and held on to win, tying the series 2-2. In Game 5, the Phillies all of a sudden woke up at the plate against the Diamondbacks' best pitcher, Zach Gallen. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and JT Realmuto all had home runs as the Phillies cruised to an easy 6-1 win. Now, after 2 rocky games, the Phillies got the lead back in the series, and they just needed 1 to win. Just 1 to advance to the World Series. And they would be going for this 1 win at home for Games 6 and 7. In 5 home games this postseason, the Phillies had 16 home runs and averaged just over 7 runs per game. Their offense was basically unstoppable at home with one of the greatest home field advantages in sports. Except, this trip back home, the Phillies lost all their magic. In Game 6, the Phillies struck out 10 times and only scored 1 run in a 5-1 loss. The Phillies' top of the order, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and Bryce Harper, were all a combined 0 for 9. The Phillies' bats just didn't show up. Game 7 was here, and Phillies fans brought every bit of energy they had. There was no way they could lose in this environment. But over on the mound, for the Diamondbacks, was the Phillies' worst nightmare. The rookie who basically came out of nowhere and owned the Phillies lineup. And in the first inning, the Phillies topped the order went as expected. Strikeout, groundout, strikeout. Alec Boehm got things going for the Phillies in the second with a leadoff home run to tie the game at 1. Then, the Phillies were able to grab the lead in the fourth with a Bryson Stott RBI double. They loaded the bases and had a real chance to break the game open and do some damage. Phillies 9-hitter, rookie Johan Rojas was up to the plate now. Rojas is one of the best defenders in all of baseball, and his role was crucial for the Phillies saving runs. On the other hand, he was 4-43 at the plate this postseason and had no RBIs. This was definitely a spot where you had to pinch hit Rojas to capitalize on the opportunity with the bases loaded, though Rob Thompson didn't do this and he let Rojas hit. This missed opportunity drained the life out of the Phillies. The Diamondbacks led the game 4-2 going into the bottom of the 7th. In the 8th, the Phillies went down 1-2-3 with 3 strikeouts. And in the 9th, they went down 1-2-3 with 3 weak flyouts. The team that seemed unbeatable at home now had lost back-to-back series-clinching games in the stadium that they dominated in. In this series, many key parts of Philadelphia's lineup faltered. Nick Castellanos went 1 for 24, Trey Turner went 0 for his last 12, and Bryce Harper went hitless in games 6 and 7. Key players that the Phillies counted on and needed to close out the series disappeared. No, the Phillies would not be celebrating in the pool in Arizona. Instead, they were embarrassed in front of their own fans. The only thing more embarrassing than choking in front of your own fans in the League Championship Series is choking in front of your fans in the World Series. And that's exactly what the Yankees did in 2024. Going into the 2024 World Series, nobody really expected the Yankees to win. The Dodgers were huge favorites and pretty easily went up to a 3-0 series lead. But as you know by this point, no lead is safe and anything can happen. The Yankees went into Game 4 and looked like a completely new team. They got on base 18 times and put up 11 runs in a momentum-stealing victory. Now, going into Game 5, the Yankees had a legitimate shot to make this a competitive series, and they had the perfect guy on the mound, Gerrit Cole. Gerrit Cole starts things off by getting Shohei Ohtani out, then forces Mookie Betts to ground out to first base. See how Gerrit Cole clearly indicates to first baseman Anthony Rizzo to take the ball to the base here? This is good communication by these two here. Remember that, because later on, a similar situation happens. In the bottom of the first, Aaron Judge and Jazz Chisholm put the Yankees on the board and let everyone know the Yankees were still in this. The Yankees tacked on another run in the second and quickly knocked Dodgers All-Star Jack Flaherty out of the game. They weren't done. Giancarlo Stanton made it 5-0 with a line drive shot to right. Quickly after this, Aaron Judge pulled off an insane jumping catch at the wall to rob the Dodgers of a hit. See how Judge catches the ball here? Remember that for later. Gerrit Cole was dealing on the mound. He had a no-hitter going into the 5th inning and a 5-run lead. The Yankees had the Dodgers right where they wanted them. It should be easy cruising from here on out. Though what happened to the 5th inning, nobody expected. It was not only the worst inning in World Series history, it might be the worst inning in baseball history. An inning nobody will forget for all the wrong reasons. The inning starts off with a Dodgers single to break up the no-hitter. Then the Yankees' defense began to fall apart.
The heating up Judge, who settles under this ball, but then drops it. Can Hernandez get to the bag before the throw? He does!
This put runners on first and second, no outs, but the Yankees failed again to make a routine play. The Dodgers now have the bases loaded, no outs, after the Yankees' mistakes. Luckily, Gerrit Cole was still on the mound, and he struck out Gavin Lux to get one out. Then, facing Shohei Ohtani in one of the biggest at-bats of his life, Cole clutched up. Cole now had battled back after 2 errors. He was 1 out away from escaping the jam, and he threw a perfect pitch to Mookie Betts, getting him to hit a ground ball to first base. Whoa, what just happened there? Anthony Rizzo just waited back on this ground ball and didn't charge it or even attempt to hustle towards first base. He must have thought Cole was going to cover, but Cole makes no effort to cover first base. Cole points for Rizzo to take it himself, but he signals this way too late. Somebody should have made a play here. This is an easy out for them. Remember in the first inning when they communicated on literally the exact same play with a Mookie Betts grounder to first? It looked like a clean routine play. This play in the 5th was just sloppy. And Cole and Rizzo didn't know what to do. The Yankees could have been out of the inning with no damage, but now, with another chance, the Dodgers took full advantage. The game was all tied up, and if the Yankees just turned one of their 3 errors into an out, the inning would have been over with no runs scored. The Yankees got 1 run back in the bottom of the 6th to make it 6-5, but in the 8th, the Dodgers made it 7-6 and never looked back, ultimately ending the game and the series. The Yankees outplayed the Dodgers most of this game. They hit better and pitched better. It really looked like the Yankees were going to get right back into the race for the World Series, but just one bad inning of errors is all it takes to derail a game, and in this case, a season. Choking in baseball encapsulates the beauty and agony of baseball. It's a sport defined by relentless repetition, where players endure thousands of pitches and hundreds of at-bats over a season. Yet, when the stakes are the highest, the weight of a single misstep can overshadow an entire legacy. Whether it's a missed routine play, a poorly timed strikeout, or a manager's questionable decision, these moments linger in the minds of fans and players alike. What makes these collapses so gut-wrenching is the emotional investment. Fan bases watch in disbelief as teams that seemed invincible falter under pressure, turning triumph into tragedy. It's a reminder of baseball's brutal unpredictability, how one inning, one play, or one pitch can rewrite history. Baseball is a game of resilience, even after devastating failures. The beauty of the sport lies in the opportunity to write back. Every season offers a new slate, a chance to rebuild, and moments to redeem past mistakes.